Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the B Channel podcast, where my objective is to bless, edify, and encourage others to live their best lives. And today's topic is why your legacy matters. And my guest is Dr. Kimberly Harms. Introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Thank you so much, Amber. I'm 67 years old. I've been around the block for quite a few times in dentistry. I've had a lot of areas in dentistry. That was my profession, but I've lost a lot of people. I lost my mother and my son to suicide. I lost my husband to a broken heart after my son died. And my whole purpose for being here is that God has given me the strength, and by trusting in Him, to learn to live joyfully in life, no matter what happens, and to help the next generation become emotionally prepared for life after we're gone. Because I'm in that fourth quarter. Like, I know I'm in the fourth quarter because I'm just old enough to be in the fourth quarter. But you might not know you're in the fourth quarter, Roberta. You're young. You might be, but you just don't know. So we really need to be prepared, and to help the next generation manage life without us. And I think that's my whole purpose right now, is to do that.
Yes, that's so true. My first question is death is something we all dread, but we must prepare for it. Can you share some practical advice for starting these hard conversations?
Yes, what many of us, it's difficult to talk to our children about our own deaths, and I know because I've got two surviving daughters, and they one of them I can talk to more easily, and the other one is a
She's a
little
little antsy.
uncomfortable. Yes, yes. So I wrote a book. So I just told him, okay, read the book before my funeral. So whatever you read it, just read it before my funeral. It's all the stuff is in there, and you got it all. But we need to have those conversations, because when you get to be 67 years old, you see so many families that are torn apart after someone dies, either because of issues surrounding their death, which is why we need to have an advanced healthcare directive written and signed by us so that we can direct that, and our children aren't fighting over who took you off the intubator first. We don't want those discussions. We don't want that animosity and the conflict in our families after we go. We also need to make sure all of our affairs are in order. Make sure you have a will. Make sure you have all of your stuff is kind of taken care of. I recommend also writing legacy letters to be given to our family after we die, to say, "Oh, I love you. I was so proud of you. I want you to live joyfully without me." All of those things are very, very important, and we just need to there are many steps. In fact, in the book I have a workbook that has all the steps. Make sure your passwords are here, make sure you have your titles of your car and all that stuff. And we don't like to do that, because we're just admitting that we're going to die, but we are. I mean, we're not going to escape it, so we don't
Right.
like to admit it. But it's an act of love for your family. So I'm encouraging everyone to show your love to your family by getting your affairs in order to make their lives easier when you're gone.
That is so beautiful. I love what you said, particularly about the legacy letters, because there are so many things sometimes that can be left unsaid, or maybe you didn't have a chance to say it enough while you were here. And they have that forever. So they
Mhm.
can look at that and they can think of you. And I've been talking to my mom a lot more lately about this kind of stuff. So I was like, this is so great. And then I was even looking at some videos that I had taken of my dad. I was just asking him
Mhm.
questions because, just like little things that you might not think to ask somebody about their life. I think that that's really important. So I love what you said about legacy letters.
Yes. And we have questions, like a whole bunch of questions in the book, that you can just ask yourself. You can hold your phone up. You don't even need anybody else. You can just hold your phone up and say, "I was born on this date," and all the things that happened. My husband's mother did this when on VCR, the VCR tape. One of the brothers was taping him, and she had 14 children, so she had some
Wow.
stories, including going on the Saskatchewan plains. They were Norwegian immigrants with potatoes in their pockets to keep their fingers warm, and they were on sleighs going across this plain to school. I mean, we would never, ever, ever get this unless we had it documented. So you need to tell. We've lived through a lot of changes in life, and we have a lot of advice to give, wanted or unwanted, but when you throw it out there on a tape, you're not directing it to anyone in particular, so it's kind of nice. It's not quite as threatening to people. But it's just important to give that information, have it available so that your loved ones can hear about you, see what you went through, talk about all the people in your lives that mattered, and really things that you learn, because you do learn a lot. I mean, when you get older, our joints don't work, our brain, we are the names get hidden in the crevices of our brain. We can't remember them very well, but we've been through a lot of stuff, and we can give from experience some of the stories that we have. And I think that's so incredibly important for the next generation. So you don't maybe have to go through all the stuff we went through because you have some information ahead of time.
Right. And then even with the video, I love what you said about that because they can be able to like put a story together or craft a eulogy from that video, and they don't have to wonder like what was her life about. Cause I feel like that's something that I heard on a podcast recently. This lady was saying that she actually took the time to explain to her child like what her career was, because she said sometimes
Mhm.
you're just going about your life and you don't even think that you don't even think to discuss what you actually do. Like what is your life about? Like what are you doing? How are you feeling in your day-to-day life? Like all of those kinds of things. So I just think that's so deep, really, to have that.
And what your values are, what's important, because when you get older, you realize that some of that stuff that you thought was really important beforehand. I mean, I had a really good resume before
Hmm.
I retired, and it doesn't matter. None of that. The
Right.
resume doesn't matter. What matters are the relationships I have with my family, with my friends, with the people I interact with every day. That's what's important. And for some reason, it took me a long time to figure that out. And I think it takes a lot of people a while to figure that out. So the more we can say that as people that have lived a longer life, I think the more it can be helpful to younger people that are still kind of caught up in all the stuff, the career stuff that we need to do, and we need to do to support our families. But realize that don't decrease the value of the relationships that you have, because they are what really creates a happiness in your life.
Yes, I like to say that relationships are the currency of life for real. I really feel like that because you don't realize it until you, like you said, you start losing people or things change in your life, and or the person is not who they used to be because of health and stuff like
Mhm.
that, and you're like, oh, this really matters.
And speaking of that, that's one of the reasons it's so important to record your video legacy as soon as possible, because again, I'm 67, and so who knows if my brain is still going to be working when I'm 77. I don't know if I've got some issues coming up. I don't know if I have health issues that might prevent me from remembering all of this, or make me a different person or take away my energy. Those are so critical for your family to really get to know who you are in case disease takes that away from you at the end.
Yes, I had not thought about that, but it's so true. That's why they always say when they when people like fill out those documents, they always say I such and such and sound mind.
Yes.
Because they want you want to be in sound mind, like not under duress or not
Mhm.
like just out there trying to write stuff and make decisions. So you're so right about that. Um Now you said that you became a death doula. Can you share more about that?
Yes, I did. So when I was, when my husband died, when he passed away, and I also, lost my son to suicide.
Sorry
And when
about
my
that.
husband passed away, we have 6 amazing grandchildren, and they were young. And I saw the effect his death had on their lives, and my family's life, and my life, frankly. And I thought, what can we do? What can we do to help so that my children will have less pain? I kind of want to provide like a pillow for them to fall on. It's going to be hard, but I want them to fall softly instead of hard when I go.
Mm.
And I remembered, or heard that there was a new kind of a newer uh, profession out there called death doula. And I realized as I was writing my book, because I'm writing my book about death and about what to do afterwards, I thought, well, I want to make sure I have the latest information. So I became certified as a death doula. And what I do is death doula has many parts. Death doulas can sit with someone who's dying, which I probably would like to do at some point in time. But the part of the death doula that I really have embraced at this time in my life is creating the legacy. It's getting that legacy down so that the next generation can learn from you. And also, most importantly, you're leaving that emotional life insurance plan for them so that when you go, you are emotionally preparing them for that. And that's my focus. But that death doulas just help people. Birth doulas help guide people through the birthing process, and then on the other end, we death doulas help guide people through death and dying. So it's fascinating, and I've just come to really feel this is my calling. You know, I failed retirement as a dentist, so this is my this is my calling, my second career, and one that I just do from my heart. I'm really enjoying this because I find that people need it. I find that it's
Yes.
useful and people need it. And it's when you get older, when you're a widow, it's wonderful to feel useful and needed in helping people go through think about their death and pass along the next step in their journey is really something that I find very rewarding.
Right. And I love this whole idea of a death doula because you hear about the birth doula all the
Mhm.
time, but we sometimes shy away from the other end. Everybody's really excited about birth, right? But death is like, oh Lord. So I like that you're kind of taking some of that, like that kind of stigma out of it, and also,
Mhm.
like you said, that emotional support to
Yes,
just let people know that okay, this happens, but if you're prepared, it won't be as much of a blow. It's going to be a blow, but at least if you're prepared and you know what's going on with the person and where their stuff is as far as the information, and
yes,
just you know something about them, you feel settled,
yes,
and you feel like okay, like I'm not ready. Nobody's ever ready, but it's like okay, this takes some of the sting out of it.
yes. And when my husband died, he actually died twice. He the day before his actual death, he stopped breathing and lost his heartbeat for over 20 minutes. And I actually called
Mm.
hospice, you know, and he's dead. And I was on the phone with my daughter, and we were crying. And after about 20 minutes, I happened to look, and all of a sudden, just like in the movies, it was really kind of crazy. He just went, he took a big
Oh
deep breath,
my
and he was breathing. It's, oh
goodness.
my goodness. And then I was able to get everyone to come and visit him. It was an absolutely miraculous day. I got to have everyone come and talk to him, and kind of a living funeral with him present, you know, in the room.
Hmm.
And then he passed away the next day. But what it showed to me, and when someone dies, for instance, when he died the first time, he was on hospice. He had oxygen, and I took his oxygen mask, his oxygen off just for a second to put his shirt on, and he was talking all of a sudden, and then he just went, just gone. I felt like maybe I did something wrong. And when you're guiding someone as a family member through hospice, it's probably one of the most important things you can do in your life. And I wanted to do it right. And I felt like, oh no, I screwed this up. I killed him, by taking off his oxygen to put his shirt on, which of course I didn't. That's what you do to get the shirt on. You take it off, put it on, should be fine. But in my heart, in anyone that has lost someone knows that grief doesn't make any sense sometimes. You got all kinds of craziness going through in your brain. And so I just kind of felt God said, okay, Kim, all right, because I lost a mother and son to suicide. So guilt is a big player in my life. I think he just kind of said, okay, Kim, all right, let's bring him back. Let's do this again. And when he finally did die, there was the hospice nurse was there along with two rescuers. He kind of slid out of the bed, and they were trying to get him back up. And again, he was talking. He was fine. And then he just went. He was gone. But there were two people between me and with Jim, and so I was able to know, and I just kind of felt God was saying, "Okay, Kim, it's his time. He's gone. He's run his race. Wasn't your fault." And so that, as silly as that sounds, made my grieving much easier. So if just that little thing could make my grieving easier, I really thought there's probably a lot of things out there that we focus on in our grief that are damaging and cause it to last longer. And we go deeper into the grief pit because of these things. So let's try to take all of those things that we can control, we can help with out of the picture, and allow our loved ones to grieve in a healthy way.
Yeah, that was so deep, really. I remember when you told that story, I was
Mhm.
like, what a gift to be able to have those moments. You know, that definitely was a
Mhm.
God wink.
It
So
was.
I know that made you very grateful, you
Mhm. I'm a
know.
slow learner. Has to go, "Okay, I'll bring it back," you know?
So, do you have any practical advice for how do you prepare the loved ones for your eventual loss? Like, what
Yes.
does that look like?
Yeah. What I've been doing with mine, first of all, there's a list. Get your affairs in order, and we have a workbook in the book that's got a list of your passwords. Get all your information about your house. If you have a pet, who's going to take the pet, and where's the vet? Where's the vet? Where all these things, all this information that we just take for granted that we know in our heads, but somebody has to manage that after you die. Someone's got to turn off the heat, the electricity. They need to know all those numbers. They need to know where your retirement accounts are, where the your life insurance plans are. All of that stuff can be done, and you just in a binder, one binder, have it all in the binder, have page protectors in there so the pages are protected. I also have in that binder the titles to my car, my birth certificate, my husband's death certificate, any information, my social security number, any information that they're going to need to manage everything before I go. And the one thing I haven't gotten in yet, but I'm going to get it in soon, is I'm a veteran, and you need to have all the veterans information so that you can get the burial. You get some burial benefits. So you want to have all that information there so they can find it. And so I have it all except for the veterans thing in one place. So if I die, when I die, my kids can just take this and they know exactly where it is, take it out of the safe, open it up, and just everything is there. They don't have to go searching through all my cabinets and my drawers and find out where I put this or where I put that. The passwords are all there. They can get into my phone. Make sure you leave people as beneficiaries of your bank account so they can get in the bank account to pay for the funeral. All of these things just make life easier, because when you lose someone that you love, and I'm going to a funeral for my niece who was only 52 years old on Saturday.
My
So they're going
goodness,
through
I'm
this too.
sorry.
She had terminal cancer, and she spent a wonderful 3 days with me last year. We had like little slumber parties here, and she was writing letters to her two children. But she was doing that knowing she wasn't going to be here very long. And I would
Mm,
really like us to do it before that happens, so that if you are diagnosed with a terminal illness, you don't have to worry about that stuff. It's already done for you. But just get all of that stuff done to make life easier, and in one place, in a bind. The 3-ring binder is really the best, because you can stick page protectors or envelopes in there and put the important documents. Because if you're going to sell the car, you need the title. If you're going to do anything with the house, you need the all of the information about the house. So put all of that stuff in the binder. And if there are things like your will, which might be thick, you never know, just at least write where that is. So it's either in
right.
the binder, or you've given specifically written where it is, and put it in a safe place. Just got a little safe that I put it all in. So if there's a fire, it's still going to be there. So put it in a safe spot.
Right. So, what's the name of the books, just so everybody can find it?
It's called "Are You Ready? How
Mm-hmm.
to Build a Legacy to Die For," by Dr. Kimberly Harms, and it's on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or anywhere online books. You can pretty much get it anywhere. But "Are You Ready? How to Build a Legacy to Die For?" And the first part of it talks about legacies. I've had the amazing experience of meeting some incredible people that left amazing legacies. You'd never heard of any of them, but they're just real people. And then the second part is on death and dying. And we ask the question, is death a grim or gentle reaper? We need to not be afraid of death. And then the last part is a workbook, all the things you need to, basically everything you need to know before you go, basically.
Okay. That's awesome that you have that resource for the people. And I'm gonna leave that up a little bit longer for those of you who are watching so y'all can know what the title of this book is called.
And when I
Um,
when I did the book, you can get it on Kindle for 99 cents. I mean, I made it so that I
that's
want people to have
amazing.
it. Yeah, I want people to have it. I made it so that it's available to anybody that needs it. So because it's so important, I don't want to withhold this information from anybody.
Yes. So how do we prepare for the eventuality of this transition, right? But still hold on to joy.
Uh, Well, okay, I'm a Christian. So to
Mhm.
me, the transition means that I will see my husband and I'll see my son again. I'll see my mother. Uh, I'm looking forward to a time when I'm with my Savior. So to me, I that's how my mind works. That's how I see death. Now I want to be here as long as
Mhm.
possible because I have these 6 grandchildren, and they need their grandma. I mean, grandmas are important. So I have a purpose still on earth, and I just feel that God's going to knows how long my race is, and right now my husband has run his race, and God was able to show me very directly that he was done with his race, but I'm not. And that's the thing. When you're a widow, it's really hard because suddenly you're alone. I was married at 19. We were married for 44 years, and suddenly, like, I'm alone for the
Mm.
first time in my life. I'm living alone. It's a very lonely experience. It's a challenging experience. And for all the widows out there, people that have lost a child or other loved ones, just remember, God isn't done with you yet. You still have a race. You still have things to do, and just look around for what that might be. And there's such a joy that can be attained when you've done that. And also, I realize that we're falling into that grief pit, and anybody that's lost someone knows you go down that pit, you can hardly breathe or eat. It's a horrible place to live, but it's a place that you're going to stay unless you fight. You don't come out of it automatically. You have to fight your way out. And the way I fought my way out was my love for my remaining family, looking at the family I had here and knowing that if I'm able to get out of that pit and live joyfully, that's going to have a positive effect on my children and my grandchildren and anyone around me. Because
And that's
like,
beautiful. So quickly, can you also refresh our memory? What is the name of the devotional that you wrote for widows?
yes, it's called Naomi and the Widows Club. Let's see, I have one right here. Naomi and the Widows Club. It's a safe, let's see, a safe, strong place after the loss of a spouse. And that is a 1 year devotional for widows. And I wrote that with a dear friend, Naomi, who called me 2 days after my husband died and said, Kim, I've been thinking about doing a devotional for women. uh, I have so many. She's 84, so most of her friends are widowed, and the men tend to go. Statistically, the men tend to go a little earlier than the women. So, she has a number of widows around her, and she said, I lost my father when I was 12, and I saw what my mother went through, and I want to help people. And so she helped me. And I think that if you take a look at the Bible, it says that God helps us, and then it's our job to help others. And so Naomi helped me get through it. And the book is designed, both books really designed to help people that are going through difficult times face those times. And even if you're not going through a difficult time, we know we're going to die. So let's get prepared for that. But uh, the most important message I can give to anybody is that if you're here on earth, no matter what you faced in life, if you're still here on earth, God is not done with you yet. You have a purpose and a plan. Trust in Him. Look for that, and that's where the joy comes. Because it doesn't. I'm not. I can't be joyful without my faith.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. Um, so how would you define legacy? Like, what does that mean to you?
It means every interaction you have in your life. You and I are developing a legacy right here. Every interaction when you go. The other day, for instance, I was at a Chipotle, and this young man was in front of me, and it was a very difficult older woman. I think for my age, she probably had a little dementia or something was going on. She was the most difficult yeah, customer you could imagine. She was asking, and this poor young man was standing there, and he didn't know what to do, and the line was backing up, and he was trying to help her, and he just took one look at me and the line to back it up. I just said, good job, keep it up, keep it up. And you should have seen his face. And it was like, that's all it took. It just took a little, like, good job.
Oh,
So, but see, those are the things in our life. And I get grumpy. I mean, I get grumpy sometimes, but those are the things in your life when you can make a difference and you don't even know it. And we have to remember every kindness that we give, every time we do something like that, we are leaving a legacy behind. We don't even know it. So your legacy is every minute, every minute you're here, you're leaving a legacy.
That's beautiful. I love that definition. That's just like people need that hope. It
Mhm.
like you said, with just he was like hanging on by a thread and just a smile, just like, oh, it's gonna be okay. Like,
Mhm.
take your time. Like if
Mhm.
they get mad, then that's
Yeah.
that's on them, but I'm okay. So, that reassurance helped. So how can we help the next generation manage this grief, because everybody handles it differently. So how can we help that
Well,
process?
live your legacy now and talk about it now. Live your legacy
Mhm.
now. A good example, my husband and I were very different, and if I had died, my husband was an extrovert and he needed people in his life. He wouldn't have done
Mhm.
well without me.
Mhm.
And so I would talk about it, and the joke in the family was, "Okay, now girls, your dad will need somebody if I die first. So, the rule that I'm gonna give you is that you can't look for another wife until after the funeral, and I'm gonna be cremated, so you can have the funeral right away, 2 days, and as long as the funeral's over, you can start looking, because he would need that. And what that did is
Mm.
that gave it would have given him the freedom at that time to look for someone to help him be a companion to him. I'm more of an introvert. I'm not really looking.
Mhm.
I'm able to survive on my own better than he would. But by doing that and giving that permission, if I would have died first and he would have remarried, we wouldn't have had the tension that so frequently occurs when someone is widowed and remarries.
Right. The children sometimes have a tension there,
Yes.
with that process because they're like, oh, my mom is my mom or my dad is my dad. Who are you? They was married all these years and now you're just trying to come in and be somebody that you can't be. So that's beautiful that, people need to share that. Like, okay,
Yes.
what would you want? Because I mean, it's not like you're there to say anything, but I'm just saying, like, just be like, yeah, this is okay. It's okay to go on. It's okay. Or maybe give it like a year. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
if somebody
Yeah.
would actually adhere to that, but I'm just saying, like,
Well, and really, when you think about it too, what we did also, both my daughters are attorneys, so we really kind of adjusted our financial plan and our estate plan so that we had a cabin that the kids really we wanted to pass down to the next generation,
Mhm.
and at the time, and uh, when we had this discussion, they were saying, well, what if he marries someone and then he dies and then the cabin, and so we put in our cabin that trust was in my name, but if I died first, Jim could live in it for the rest of his life, but it belonged to the kids. Sometimes just those are, in behind, people don't like to say that, that maybe I'm worried about what I'm going to have when you die, but
Right.
I think that it's important to just work that stuff out so that if you
Right.
do die and then you find someone else, because he would need someone to keep him company, he would not do well alone. And if
Right.
he found someone else, then it should be all fine, and the kids wouldn't have to worry about their inheritance. I mean, which unfortunately that's kind of natural. We're human beings after
Yes.
all, right? We're going to worry about that. So I mean, let's just get it out there. Nobody likes to talk about it, but that's natural. So I think those are things that are really important to have the discussions beforehand so that afterwards they're prepared. I also tell my kids to have a joyful life without me, that every time they laugh or have a great time, they're honoring me when after I'm gone. I
Right.
want them to live joyfully. And we kind of know that our people that we love would like us to live joyfully, but then we have survivor's guilt. And so I
Yes.
want to eliminate, let's cut down on that survivor's guilt by telling them ahead of time that the more joyful you are, the more you honor me. So go out there and be joyful.
Right. So why does support matter in grief?
Oh my gosh, it does, because when you're going through when my son passed away, and he passed away from suicide again, only if you lose a child to that can you really understand the depths of the grief and the guilt and all the things that go into it. And again, God provided me with this wonderful group of 5 women that just kind of appeared. I didn't know any of them before, and I don't. It's kind of hard to even think how we ever got together. But and so we called ourselves the Mamas, and we would meet regularly. And sometimes our meetings, we would meet at a coffee shop, and people would wonder what's going on, because sometimes someone would just cry through the whole meeting, and it's this person's time. They just need some help, because unless you've been through a specific circumstance, you don't really know the depth of the grief. And losing a
Yes.
spouse, that's why we wrote the book. And I've have another grief group that I work with now, a second one, and to talk to other people that know, yeah, all of a sudden you wake. I know with me, I was in the hospital for a while after my husband died, and I when I came home, and it was all during COVID, so that was a mess. And I was in my bed and I was thinking, if I die, nobody would know because there's nobody here. I've always had someone in the house. So if you're
Right.
sick or you fall or you have an accident, there's someone that can call 911. But when you're all by yourself, there's no one to call 911. And so I had to get through that. And other widows understand that. And so we share. I think the big thing is to know that you're not alone. And the
Mhm.
second biggest thing to know is to have people to talk to that get grief's craziness, because you get crazy, and you have crazy thoughts in grief. And people that are not grieving kind of think, oh, why would they feel that way? But if you've been through it, you can identify. And so people need to know they're not alone, and they need to know that what they're experiencing is normal, and that they also need to see they'll get through it.
Yes, that hope is important. That community is so important too, because when you know that somebody else has been there, it's like, okay, they survived, or they're ahead of me. Maybe they're a phase ahead of me. Okay,
Mhm.
I see them thriving again.
Yeah.
I can thrive again, and
Yes.
I'm not going to be in this pit forever.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, and
So.
one of the things that really, really, really helped me after the death of my son was I just got called, and it's a long story, and I don't even know how it happened, but I ended up in Rwanda with Books for Africa, bringing libraries there, and I still go quite a bit. We have 65 libraries now, which is a miracle in itself. But when I went there, this was I think 16 years after the genocide, and
Mm,
here were these people that had lost their entire families, everything that they had, to a genocide, and yet
mm,
they could forgive, and they
mhm,
could get on with their lives. And at this time, they were, some were able to find, not everybody, but many were able to find joy in their lives. And they built now Rwanda as a thriving, safe, beautiful country that when people get, nervous about going there, I say, well, are you afraid to go to Canada? Because it has the same safety rating as Canada. It's even safer than going some places in Europe. So Rwanda
mm,
it was rebuilt into a safe, beautiful country because people realized that if they allowed this to happen and they couldn't forgive and they couldn't reconcile, they were dooming their children to the same life they have. And instead, these are heroes in my mind. They forgave the unforgivable. They reconciled with people after they went to jail for 20 years, and they are bringing them back into their communities. And you can't say you're Hutu or Tutsi anymore, which were the two groups that were there before. You say you're Rwandan. There were other groups too,
mm.
but those were the two main. You say you're Rwandan, which, if you take a look at maybe in our country, maybe we could just maybe say we're American. And I see some divisions here that after going there, I get a little concerned about. So that reconciliation and forgiveness and understanding people is a big lesson that I learned and was very fortunate to learn by seeing these amazing, incredible people in Rwanda who were like my grief counselors. So I kind of got the best grief counselors in the world when I was recovering from my son's death.
Yeah, because they can relate on a
Mhm.
macro level, you
Yeah.
know? That
And
was
they
deep.
embraced me when they knew why I was there, when they knew that the reason we were delivering these books was as a memorial to my son who had passed away. They just came over, and they just embraced me, and I was one
Yeah.
of them. And I don't think I ever felt so loved as I is in Rwanda, because they
Wow.
knew they had gone through so much more than what I had, yet they were here for me in my pain. So um,
Mm.
there, and I think looking around culturally, there are so many other cultures that probably handle death and dying better than we do here.
Mhm. And that really brings to light that scripture that we're able to comfort people with the comfort that we ourselves have received from God. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 verses 3 through 4. It talks about how God is the God of all comfort.
Mm.
And that's like he gives us the comfort. And it's basically like you just kind of pass it on, like, okay, he gives you the comfort. Now I got this comfort. Now I can get this comfort to other people. So that's what they did for you.
Yes, yeah, that was his plan for me, I believe. So, but yeah, that verse has probably really been one of the main verses I've focused on this last year, and why I was this dental speaker, and I kind of say, well, this is good because I did focus on grief and conflict, but into a very specific audience. And I thought, I need to focus on doing this on a wider basis because I was a recipient of the comfort from so many wonderful people who gave it freely to me. And I think that that's what I would like to do. that would be my legacy if I do it successfully,
Yeah, I think you are. Like you said, your legacy is every minute. So you piled up a lot of minutes just helping people, like you said. So you're on your way. If you don't feel like you are, you're on your way.
Thank you.
Yeah. So due to depression, you've lost several important men in your life. How can we encourage men to advocate for themselves when they experience depression?
Well, okay, that's a great question because when my son died,
Mhm.
I knew that I suffered from depression and my mother died. So like I'm in the middle. So depression, I'm in the middle. We didn't know my son had depression at all. He was very impulsive. He was 19 years old. His girlfriend broke up with him and he was gone in 45 minutes. I mean, it was just, we had no clue. My mother suffered from bipolar disease.
Mm.
But I realized after my son's death that if I was going to have the responsibility of trying to learn to be joyful so that I could help the people around me, I got treated for depression. And there was a time when I was treated, I said, "Oh, I'm feeling better now." And mine happens to be a medication that works well for me, the right dosage. "Oh, I'm feeling better now. I'll just get off of this." Well, within about a month or so, my daughter said, "Mom, did you stop taking your medication?" And I
She
go,
could tell.
how did you know? She goes, "Mom, get back on it." And what are you saying? And I talked to my doctor and she was like, "What the heck? Why did you get off?" And I said, "Well, you know, I just felt that I didn't really need to be on it. I was feeling better." And she goes, "Well, did you get off your blood pressure medication too?" And I said, "No."
Right.
"Did you get all, I have other medication for other illnesses?" "No." "Well, why did you get off of this?" "Because you need it." And I said, "Okay." And so I just realized at that moment that for me, I needed to stay on it the rest of my life. There is no shame to that. I am so glad they have that. I'm so glad that medication is out there. It works well for me. My husband I call him a stubborn Norwegian because he was from a generation that felt that any recognition of depression or emotional illness was a weakness. And he just
Mm.
couldn't admit he was depressed. I mean, I could see he was depressed. He was depressed. He had just had a liver transplant 6 months before my son died because he had liver cancer. So he had been through so much. And of course, he had depression, but he would not admit it. And within 2 years of having his heart check out is good enough to have a liver transplant because they're not going to give you a liver if your heart's not working. So it was
Mhm.
checked out as healthy. 2 years after that healthy checkup, he was in surgery having a quadruple bypass and a new valve replaced, and then
Mm.
some other surgery. He basically had a reconstruction of his heart. 2 years. Why was that? He was suffering, I believe, from broken heart syndrome, where his heart was broken, he was depressed, and if you take a look at the statistics, you'll find that untreated depression can cause all kinds of other problems. It's associated with heart damage, with high blood pressure, with a lot of illnesses because your body is stressed. So men, if you are feeling sad, if you are depressed, get help, get treatment. It's not just about you, but it's about your family. And the more legacy time you have, the better. So stay healthy to leave more legacy. And don't be embarrassed. Don't be afraid. Don't be feel that it's a weakness because it is not. I don't feel it's a weakness. I'm still here. I'm happy. I'm joyful. I can interact with my children well and my grandchildren. Get treatment so you can leave more legacy.
That's a beautiful purpose, to stick around. Like, oh, I got legacy to build. I
Right.
got people to help. I got people to impact. So I like that motivation. And we talked about the widows devotional a little bit earlier and how you have the widows group that you lead. Can you share some tips for how to find your next act as life changes?
Yes, and I think that as life changes, so I'm a widow now. I'm retired. Well, I kind of failed retirement because I'm doing this now, but I don't think retirement really isn't biblical. People aren't retiring in the Bible. But
Right.
so I think that one of the things that happens is when you are of retirement age, you are free to go out there and like find what you're good at, find what you love, find what you can do. There are so many people out there that you can help. And one of the best ways to overcome depression is to help somebody else. It is
Mhm.
it not only when I gave that guy in at the Chipotle's the big thumbs up, and I saw him smile. It raised my endorphins. It made me feel better. When you can help somebody else, you feel better too. So go out there and find your passion. Or art is another one. I love to paint. I found that that was I paint porcelain, which is kind of a dying art, but that gives me joy too, and then I can leave it to my grandchildren. But
Oh, okay.
find yeah, find what your passion is and go for it. And look, if you can't think of anything, there's always somebody that needs help. There are many
Yes.
organizations.
Yeah, that's great because, use it as a time of exploration. Okay, things have changed. You might have lost people in your life, but what is your next act? Like, what are you, supposed to do now? Because that is what keeps people alive, really, to have purpose. Because some people, they will work all their lives, and then the second they sit down, you hear about that. A lot of people, they pass after they
Yes.
sit down because they just don't feel like their life has any meaning, and it just been working so long, like you said, the stress.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to, stay active to stay vital, you know?
And you have to have some reason to wake up in the morning. You need to have a reason to wake
Yes.
up in the morning and go out and do something. My husband retired from dentistry, clinical dentistry, and then he was, he got a year or two, and then he was like, well, now what do I do? And then he went and taught, and he loved it. He loved it, but
Oh,
he did not do well, and many of us don't do well when we don't have a purpose. And that doesn't mean you have to have a job, because your purpose might be to take care of your grandchildren, or your purpose might be to be a really good baker and treat the
right.
rest of the group around you, or just to be an encourager. Anybody can be an encourager to the people around you. So that doesn't even take an effort, or you don't have to join any organizations. You can just
Right.
do that in your life.
Absolutely. Like that's just so important because like you said earlier, everybody wants to feel useful, they want to feel needed. And that gives you energy to keep going in life, you know? So that's so important. Um talk about why forgiveness and reconciliation is so crucial during the end of the loved one's life.
When somebody dies and you have not reconciled with them, you have a relationship that's kind of torn. Your grief actually many times is more difficult,
Mhm.
because then guilt can enter the equation. When my father died suddenly, and I had a sister that was not, were not getting along, and it was even harder for her. I got along with everyone, my whole life. I kind of was on the even keel. I was a middle child. I keep everybody happy. That's what we do. And but she was not. She was involved in a conflict with him, and when he died, it was so difficult because she felt she could never resolve it. As long as they're
Mhm.
alive, you kind of feel like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. Once they're gone, you can't. And so
Right.
by bringing, when we talk about encouraging, and that Bible verse about we encourage others, right?
Mhm.
By forgiving and reconciling, you were bringing peace not only to your life, but to the life of the other person involved. And when my husband died, when he had, and this might be another reason he had that extra day, is he had a brother that had not really talked with him for about 10 years. And he came over that day, that extra day that he had, and he brought videos of when they were climbing Mount Whitney and when he was like 25 years old, which was so much fun
Wow.
because we all got to see, Pop Pop as a 25-year-old, and my husband, I'll never forget that last day when he was talking to his brother. He had this amazing smile on his face. He was so joyful, and so was the brother. Imagine if Jim had died and the brother had not made it over. If he had died in the morning, that might be another reason.
Right.
Not only help my guilt, God said, "Oh well, darn, we hadn't reconciled yet. We better get him over here for that."
Okay.
So, it that reconciliation is so important, and it's hard. But remember, if for Christians, that God forgave us, so we kind of have to forgive everybody. It's because he forgave us, he died for us. So like our duty is to forgive people and to try to reconcile. Now here's the thing too: there are some relationships that are dangerous.
Mhm.
That reconciliation is not a good thing because it might put you in some sort of emotional danger, and we all kind of know what those might be. And especially if drugs or alcohol are involved, they might not be able to reconcile, but you can still forgive. So
Mhm.
reconcile when you can, but always forgive. That really is the real key. You can forgive
Right.
without them, being worthy of it. Like we're not worthy to be forgiven, so we kind of have to forgive other people that might not be
Right.
worthy of forgiveness. I just talked to this morning. I was one of the widows that I work with. Is her daughter was murdered, And we were talking about this
Mm.
morning, and she said, he comes up every so often with kind of a new reason to try to get out of his murder conviction. And she said, it brings it all back, and I'm really struggling to forgive. Sometimes there's really, really hard things to forgive, but we need to just keep trying. And certainly that was understandable. I mean, I also think we have to stop judging, because God's a judge. We can't judge other people. We can only take care of ourselves. So for yourself, do your best to forgive, and reconcile whenever possible, and kind of swallow, get rid of your ego to reconcile. Your ego really gets in the way of everything. And that was Satan's sin. He had a big ego that got him in trouble. So our
Yes.
egos get us in trouble. So get rid of your ego and forgive. Is forgive, and reconcile when you can.
Yeah, that's so true. It made me think about, how it says in the Bible, it says if you have something against your brother or sister, like leave your gift at the altar and then come back.
Mhm.
But it kind of made me think like, okay, what if your gift is that I guess the gift would be you're leaving and you have more peace.
Yeah.
Or the person that's still alive will have more peace. What if that's the gift? And then that's why, like you were saying, like it just made me think about that when you talk about the brother and them being able to
Yes.
reconcile. You if you have something there, he could not go
Right.
until that happened.
I know. It was
That was deep.
It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And so I have in the book, I've got little, you can write reconciliation letters where you fill in the blank. So sometimes people are like, well, I don't like to write. You could certainly do it verbally, which is the best. But sometimes if you feel like you just can't call that person, or, you can write him a note, and just, it can be 3 sentences. I love you. I'm so sorry that, we haven't been, you only have to, if he did something wrong, you don't even have to say anything about it, but just, I love you. I would like to reconcile. And just send that to them. Just something quick and easy if you can't approach them,
Right.
verbally.
Right. That's so important. And I was talking to somebody else and she was saying she did a chair exercise and she talked to the chair and told the chair everything that she wanted to say to that person. And I thought that was interesting too. And then I was watching Imitation of Life, I think it was. And that last scene when she finally came back to her mother, that is really the whole crux of why we're having this conversation,
Yeah.
because she was like so distraught, but you had your whole life that she was there and you didn't say anything to her. Now all of a sudden she's gone, you're crying and boo-hooing, and that's my mom. She
Mhm.
was your mom all this time, sweetie.
Right.
And the mom had so much grace for her, and I love how
Mhm.
much grace and love that she had for her. But it was just like, girl, like you could have been loving on her while she was here.
Mhm.
So it hurt my heart so much. That part made me like, oh my goodness. And it just make you want to go hug your loved ones when you see
Mhm.
you see that movie. You be like, I better be, I better talk. I better do what I have to do to make sure we're good before it's all said and done, and just learn everything like you were saying earlier. So I really, I really do think that that's important for the peace on both sides.
Right. And one of the best things we do as a family, we just got in the habit, is whenever we get off the phone, or when anybody leaves, we say, I love you. That's the last thing we say. And so that became very critical when my son died, because the last thing he heard from every member of the family was, we love you. And it was 45 minutes after his girlfriend broke up with him. It was a quick death. Nobody had time to
Mm.
intervene. But we knew for ourselves as the survivors that the last thing we told him was that we loved him. And so I think that's one of the
Right.
best habits to get into, because you never know, they could get hit by a car. And there's a lot of peace in knowing that the last thing you said to them was that you love them.
Right, and say it often, say
Yeah.
it often. Like, so much even that it kinda
Mhm.
gets on their nerves, but
Yeah.
say it. You know what I mean? So, that's really good, though. I think that that's so simple, but it's so true, it's so profound. Like, we have to get in the habit of saying, "I love you" more, and some of us, it's hard for us. Maybe,
Mhm.
like you said, just write the letter, but just reach out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say, I always ask everybody, do you have a seed for the listeners? Like if they had to take away one thing and remember one thing from this entire conversation, if they didn't remember anything else, what would you tell them?
That the greatest legacy that you can leave is love. If you love God and love your neighbor with your heart, soul, and mind, If you can do that, you got everything else down. But then write the legacy. Part of your love is getting that legacy all written out. So just saying.
Yes,
That's
yes.
your legacy. You can't go wrong when you love people. If you act out of love, you can't go wrong.
Yes, that's so good. Do you have any projects or events coming up that you would like to share with the audience?
Well, on the 29th, I'm going to have in our at Berean Baptist Church in Minnesota, we're having a big legacy seminar where I'm going to go over the different legacies. I'm making up a workbook now so that you can put this workbook in your 3-ring binder, and it has all the passwords and all those things you need to know, and also a recommendation of where to put everything. So I'm having this big workshop at our church, and it's the first one. I just got the book out, and I'm getting away from the dental field to go on to just a general population. And so my hope is that people come away with their um, healthcare directive that's signed in Minnesota. We can sign it with 2 people, so they can write it out and sign it. We're going to talk about wills. We're going to talk about how to write legacy love letters. We're going to
Mm,
get some legacy videos, some short legacy videos for 10-minute little videos that they can on their own phone that they can send to their kids that day. So we want to get them started. So I want to get like a kickstart. Let's go and get this going, because
yes.
the major problem is procrastination. We just put it off, even when we know it. I had to write a book, so like I can't judge anybody, because if I hadn't written the book, I wouldn't have this stuff done. I just kind of, I'd
Oh.
be hypocrite otherwise, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Like they need to have more stuff like that. I
Mhm,
think that would be great if you know how like I feel like okay with churches they'll have like the nursery and they might have like the kids ministry, youth ministry,
mhm,
but that everyday life stuff like you're talking about, like the different stages of life. Sometimes it's just marriage, is not the singleness stuff, or it
mhm.
nobody really talks about like they make maybe if they're open church they might be like okay let's have a divorce care
Yeah,
ministry, but then nobody even addresses that. So you are really filling a void
yeah.
because how many churches are out there that's really talking about this? You know?
We need to. We need to. And part of legacy, I mean, part of it's financial, and leaving it's where does the money go? And we have most of ours, almost all of it goes to the kids, but there's part that we give to churches and to other charities. And I think that it's really important too to remember that in your legacy as you want to do it, just where your heart is, to make sure you're doing that correctly. But I think they really need to address the problem with seniors. With seniors are kind of a neglected group in many churches, and we do have an active senior ministry where
Oh,
and they're so excited about it. I mean, they're putting together. I have a whole bunch of ladies all together, and they're going to like put together the folders, and I'm
okay.
sending them the information. They're, oh, I want to put it. They're so excited
Wow.
because they want to get this done, and they know they need a little kick in the rear end to get it going. So I want to
I
just
know
kick
that's right.
everyone kind of just a little bit, nudge them a little bit, might be a better word, to get going on this, because it is a way that you can show your love for the people you leave behind.
That's beautiful. I love that you're taking on that project and that's much needed information and just much needed period. Like I like that idea that people actually feel excited too. So that's interesting to hear because you would think, oh, but like you said, it's the love part of it that really matters.
Mhm.
The love part really matters. So remind all of us how we can connect with you again.
Sure. If you go to my website, drkimberlyharms.com,
Okay,
and
y'all.
you can connect me right through the website.
Yes. So for everybody that is listening, it is drkimberlyharms.com. And for everybody that's watching, is on this screen right now at this very second. So I'll keep that up for a little second. But I thank everybody so much for tuning into this episode. Make sure that you like and you comment, you subscribe, you share, you leave a review, you leave a rating. Let us know what you thought about it in the comments below. Share it with a friend, definitely, because this is necessary information. And just thank y'all so much for tuning in. And if you would like more content just like this, make sure you follow me at B-Channel 27 everywhere. And last but not least, thank you so much, Dr. Kim, for joining me today on this episode.
Oh, thank you. This has been just a joyous discussion. I had so much fun. Thank you.
Oh, that is amazing. I'm so happy to hear that. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace and blessings.